Hey guys, good evening and welcome to The Writer's Journey. Thanks for joining us on the next step in your writer's journey. I'm your host, Lauren Moore, and with me is Kayleen Williams and our special guest, Jynafer Rose Yanez. And tonight we're talking about author branding. So, you've written your book, yay you, and you're ready to launch it to the world, but how do you make sure it finds the right readers? The next step is to identify your target audience and to use all the tools at your disposal to reach them. Marketing expert Jynafer joins us tonight to help you leverage your social media presence and craft catchy taglines, compelling blurbs, and hot covers to find your next superfan. So Jynafer, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you guys so much for inviting me. I'm so pleased to be here with you.
So Jen, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've been up to lately?
Absolutely. So mostly lately I've been chasing around a toddler, but when I'm not doing that and having tons of fun, I'm doing marketing for not only for my husband, Jonathan Yanez, and all of his many, many books and co-writes. I also have a handful of author clients that I help them with their marketing, and each one to varying degrees. Some of them are marketing plans, some of them are launch plans, some of them are leveling up some of their back matter and taking on things that they're ready to share and to offload, to delegate so they can focus on writing. Before I did that, I actually come from ad agency, traditional ad agency. So that's what I went to school for. And then I've been at an agency for almost 12 years. And I had a couple of years at another agency before that. And what I mostly did there was strategy. So I would work with the team to come up with the strategy, the campaigns. We would review the marketing data. We would review campaign objectives. So as I went through the years from just managing and budgeting and scheduling and logistics to being more involved in shepherding and executing the strategic plan, to be part of the team that came up with the strategy. So I worked directly under my mentor and my boss and the owner of the agency, who was a chief strategist. And so I was able to learn a lot in that field. So when Jonathan came into becoming an independent indie author, I was able to take a lot of the processes and understanding of marketing and advertising and applying that to what he's doing. And so I just became full-time home at the end of 2018. So yeah, that's my story in a nutshell.
Very cool. Nice. Yeah. So obviously you are the perfect person to be talking about author branding. And so I guess number one question out of the gate is, what is author branding, and is it painful?
I steer away from the word perfect and perfection, because that's what we strive for, and I definitely come with a lot of experience. But what's really cool is that there are so many folks in the industry and out there that have been able to aggregate the information, their experience, but also apply it with my own knowledge and experience and my own way of thinking. In that, author branding is just the brand, the persona that an author shares with the reader audience, with the public. And that could be across any platform, whether it's in person, whether it's in their books, in like the words themselves, in the themes of them, the way that it's written, in their newsletters, in their social media, in their interactions with other authors. And I think if it's done authentically, it's not painful at all. And I think that's really important, because we've gone through seasons, through the years, through the decades of information that was available on authors and how they related and were seen by the public. And it was just the idea of, oh, they're an amazing author and I know their books, therefore I associate in my mind their little tiny paragraph of who they are and like the one or two interviews that I might see about them, to getting to see more of them if they're out there on the internet, to today where everything could be, or as much as you want to share, front and center. And we've gone from creating a persona, to trying to strive to the certain ideal, to I think we're at a day and age where we're very getting into authenticity, to be true to oneself. And I think when we do that, it's not painful, it's natural. It's just a matter of how do you take those natural nuances of who you are, and the best parts of who you are, or the parts that you choose to share, and where do you share them in the right way to get to your end result. So yeah.
So what are some of the key elements of branding that we need to think about, particularly on social media?
I think we need to think about that from a user experience, how we relate to the reader. So that's going to be our customer. It's our user, right? Is the reader. So we go where our target reader is, and we relate to them in an area where we call meet them where they are. So we don't necessarily want to, 90% of the time, drive them anywhere. We just want to meet them where they are. And so if your target readers are on Twitter, go ahead, be on Twitter. If your target readers are on Facebook, then be on Facebook. If your target readers prefer email and they're not really into the Facebook crowd because they want to stay off the grid, but I guess email's still on the grid, but you know what I mean? Like in terms of social media, so that's not their thing, then you want to communicate and connect with them via email. So I know email's not social, but that's just another way. And we've heard of readers who don't want to be part of a group or a page. They still want to be connected to the author. And so email and the newsletters, I think, is a good tool to do that. When we think about where the reader is, there are different areas in their journey, in their engagement, to where they can connect with the author.
Very cool. Sorry, my mind is like whirling. I should be coming up with like responses instead of, anyway, you.
I had a slightly off-topic question just about Facebook real quick. I've seen some authors make 2 accounts, like they have their own personal private account, and then they make a second author account to use as a public front. Would you recommend that? Because it sounds like, would that be as authentic? I don't know, if you have a second account, or should you just use your authentic private account and make that open to the world, but then set yourself up for, I don't know, some kind of risk?
Well, it goes back to the adage, start with the end in mind. So if your goal is to have a Facebook account or Instagram account for your family, that's going to be much more personal. So I have a friend who has a very big family, and they're from Brazil. I want to say, make sure I get that right. And they're across the country. So they use social media as a way to connect and to show interest, like updates on their personal lives, on their adventures, on their family, and maybe some of that postings of their babies and the 2-year-old is not something they want general public. So that might be more of a private account. We also have another author friend who he has children with special needs, and so he wants to protect them. So he's going to protect his identity, and he's going to protect the children who don't know that you don't talk to these strangers. And so I think he does a really good job of separating that. And I can't think of a more genuine, open, and authentic person than him, but at the same time, wanting to protect his family. And so it's just a matter of how much are you willing or wanting to share with each group. You can still be authentic in each one, but it's through a different filtration process.
So essentially, this is private me with my family. This is author me, still me, but you don't need to see my daughter running out in the snow.
Yeah, maybe you just don't want to share that aspect of your life. And I get that. I mean, we want to be public, right? We want to be open and less filtered with who we're connecting with on the author, reader, fan level. But that's just the reality of where we are in today's world is, you want to protect your family from that, 1 out of 100 who may not have the best intentions or may not be able to filter themselves or whatever it is. So I'm not saying you should, but should have 2 accounts. But if you so choose to, if that's something that's important to you, it's not inauthentic or inappropriate, but also good luck managing it. I tried, I didn't like it.
So for the author just starting out with author branding, being authentic, what do they share? In your opinion, what are like the 3 like top most important things that they should keep in mind or should really be thinking about to utilize? I'm
going to go back for a moment. We were talking about the path of where the reader encounters the author. We had talked about an infographic. So I'm going to share that, and then from there, that'll kind of tailor us into answering your question. So let me go ahead and get that pulled up for us.
In the chat is definitely agreeing. Josh Hayes says authenticity is everything. And Rick Partlow is saying authenticity, if you can fake that, you've got it made.
Okay, so this is our purchase path. This is the reader journey from encountering the author. So the first idea is this light bulb is consideration, the notion that, hey, I would like to read something. So then the next place they're going to go is Amazon, and they're going to do a search either by their also bots, the recommendations, or going through best-selling lists, what have you. Once they're into that mode, the first thing they're going to encounter is the book cover. If the book cover has them hooked, then they'll go ahead and they'll click into the sales page. If on the Amazon sales page, everything looks kosher at first glance, they'll go ahead and go to read the blurb and description. If the blurb or description, however folks call it, is meets the needs and does its job efficiently and effectively, they may go ahead and do the look inside. Now, if we're talking about, just pausing for a moment right here, for a reader to have decided I or be looking for a book, that's already 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps, right? Mm-hmm. So then if everything looks good on the look inside, maybe they've read those first couple of pages, then they'll go ahead and buy. Once they've purchased, if they've had a good experience, which we're hoping for a 5-star experience, then they may seek continuous engagement. This is where people think the author brand begins. I think it begins all the way on this path of book cover or search. But this is where things get much more involved. So what they're going to do is they're either going to seek to engage via signing up for your newsletter at the end of your author note. They're going to go ahead and buy the next book. They're going to go find you on Facebook and like your page, join your special readers group, or whatever it is. So ultimately what you're doing after they've gone through this is selling you. Because once you've sold them on you, not sold yourself, but sold them on you, on your brand, they're going to stay engaged. And then that's where you'll have more of an opportunity to sell the next book, to let them more down to, down the road of getting to know you and becoming a fan of you. So go ahead.
I was just gonna, so a lot of that, especially like in the search and then like the book cover with, like the author branding, like what sort of, like, how can you, I don't even have the question really formulated.
Like where does the branding come into those areas?
Yeah, so like, people, they write fantasy, they write sci-fi. Those are those part of the author brand? Is that something that you definitely need to show, push through, or
absolutely
is there something?
Yeah, because I mean you're you, so you're not taking away from that, and you're not becoming something else. If I'm going to write sci-fi versus I'm going to write fantasy, you're in this imagination world where things become possible in new ways. I do think there are nuances within that. So Brandon Sanderson is Brandon Sanderson, and he can write he's writing superheroes, he's written fantasy, he's written all kinds of things, but we know, looking at them, who they're coming from and who he is. He's like this culmination of like educated nerd, which is, all good stuff, right? I say that in love. If we look at Nebula Award nominees, current guys like Jonathan Brazee and Richard Fox, they're military guys, right? They're military sci-fi. When we look at them, that's part of who they are. When we look at their Facebook and the stuff they're posting, Jonathan Brazee is like going to the gym. He's still working out. He's doing these travels. He wears his veteran hat. Like, we know who this person is, and that comes out in the way he connects with the audience and his readers, in the stuff that he writes. He's not fun, necessarily silly or absurd in his brand, nor in his stories. So we're not seeing those crazy bright characters. It's not coming across in the fonts and the styles of his covers. His cover looks different than, say, Jonathan's color or Jay and Cheney. His have these bright pops of color for his Renegade series. He has this irreverent kind of scoundrel character, gets in these missed situations. And so we're going to see that come across in his books, which are different in tone than, say, Jonathan Brazy's. And then the blurb part on the description, I know that Brian spoke about that last week, and both Brians, Cohen and Meeks, speak to that greatly in general. And I have no disagreements with anything that they're saying, but in addition to that, the tone and the sentence structure still reflects the brand of the author. So using just the word choices and the playfulness, the seriousness. Is it flowery? Is it intense and thriller-esque? Like what is your brand? And so when I write the blurbs for my clients, I read a bit of their book. I want their tone. Rick Partlow's is completely different, say, from Miles Rozak in their tone and in their structure, and then just the feeling of their book. And that needs to be reflected in the blurb because we're selling that author brand from the get-go.
Well, it sounds like you're trying to push me into this little box and make me narrowly define my audience in order to reach them. But what if I've written a book for the ages and everyone should love it? I've written actually a historical romance. So what if I decide every woman everywhere, and maybe men and children too, would just love to read my book? Do I have to narrowly define my audience in order to reach them?
If you want to have an effective and efficient experience, I would start there. Yeah. Sorry to burst your bigger, larger than life bubble. It goes back to the notion of the A9, the Amazon algorithm, and the also bots. There becomes a system where Amazon's going to sort of, quote unquote, sell it for you, kind of continue to push it out there like upon like. If you know who your reader is and you target them in your Amazon ads, right? You're going to go and do also bots. You're not just going to target the top books selling in any genre, because somebody who's reading The Women in the Castle may not want to buy historical romance with some love scenes in there, or someone who's reading sweet 16-year-old love triangle paranormal may not want to go ahead and read space dragons. So what you're going to do is you're going to Chris Fox the space dragons. It's going to be sort of a wasted impression. So you're going to pay for that impression, and they're going to get that impression, but it's not going to resonate with them, and they're not going to click. And if they do click, they are going to waste your click, and they're going to spend your money, and they may not buy. And if they buy and they try and read it, and it really doesn't stick with them, they're not going to read on through the series, or they may not give you the best review. So what you want to do is just have the most effective. And in today's day and age, I got to tell you, it's really cool for how we've gone from macro advertising to the masses, and how can we reach the most amount of people on Super Bowl ads and direct mail campaigns and all of this stuff, to how micro it can get now. I mean, that's the whole thing about the digital consumer, is you're going to show up where they are, how they are, when they want it, at a time that totally connects with them. And it's not that, say, I got makeup advertising on my Instagram today, which is like really weird. I'm trying to see some new ones. Like, what did I click? But I ended up clicking through because I was interested. And I'm not a makeup person. That's why it was like really weird. Like, I don't even wear, like, sorry dudes, foundation. I'm more of like I just need some sunblock, like, on my face kind of person. So, I mean, you can show up. Are they on a desktop computer? Are they on a tablet device? Are they on a Kindle Fire? Are they on their mobile? If they're on mobile, what kind? Is it Android? Is it Galaxy? Is it Apple product? Like, any of those. What phase are they in their life? Do they have children? Did they go to school? What did they read? We can get so much information. And it's just so cool. Like, why waste that opportunity to connect with someone who would really enjoy connecting with you and your stories and becoming a lifelong fan, a reader of you and your work? Sorry, that was sort of long-winded.
No, that's a really good point towards knowing what your story is compared to who you are, to being able to find those people that's going to resonate with, you know,
Yeah.
because you don't want to try and put it out to someone who reads, you know, super blood and gore horror when you have this sweet paranormal romance, you know, that's might not fit very well. So on that note, Dean Floyd had a question on reaching the right audience or reaching any audience. One of his first questions was, do you search for markets to write to, or do you write your stories and then find where they best fit and make alterations as needed?
Yeah, and to tack onto that, how do you figure out who your target audience is?
Okay. Going back to being authentic, I would say it's not in your best interest to chase the hottest trend, right? Especially, I'd say like majority of authors are just trying to figure out how to get those books out, get a series completed and get it launched. Those are definitely not the folks that should be trying to chase the trends, because you won't be able to write fast enough to catch up with Alex Nahu's K-Lytics report, right? So, and it's also not going to be true to who you are. You need to know the story structure and the tropes. You can write all that down, but there's a certain spirit and soul and heart to a good story. And if your heart's not in it because it's not a genre a storyline that you favor, it's going to come out in the book and in the work, and you wouldn't be true to yourself. You're going to get through book 2, you're going to figure out how to book 3, and even if it does well, and hey, you can make this a 6-9 book series, are you going to do that when you don't really care for that genre and you're like, I don't want to write another vampire romance scene? So once you kind of come over that hurdle, there's also where do you find your audience, right? So your audience is trying to find you. So you just need to kind of open up and look for them. If you have an author page, or you have even your personal page, and you notice there's readers connecting with you, who are those readers? What do they have in common when you click on their Facebook profile? Are they grandmas? Are they elder, middle-aged single women? Are they ex-military men? Are they educated? Like, what are you noticing? Oh, their profile picture has a suit. No, this guy's in his fatigues. Like, oh, he's out, like, deployed. So you'll start to see commonalities of that. Plus, you can also look at your own also bots on Amazon to see what else are they buying. Look at your top reviews. I know this is really weird. I click on the people who have like top reviews, and I click on their little like Amazon purchaser reviewer profile, and I've even like gone backwards to search for them on Facebook, so I could see like who is this individual, because they've got one of those stars of who they are on their, I forget what that's called, but they're like a star rater. They review everything. So they're trying to create a persona. They've got their own profile, so they're going to be visible on Facebook as well. And I start to see who that guy or gal is and talk to them and write for them. Like when you write the scene, like this is for Debbie, and hey, this seems really going to resonate with JR. So that's like the basics of how to find who your reader is.
That's really cool. I like that. I hadn't thought of that, like tracing someone back.
Yeah.
Really, like the reviews, that is a gold mine of information for you as an author, whether you're branding yourself or whether you're writing your book and revising it in order to make those readers satisfied. We had a question from chat. Luke asked, so branding is your personality coming through your work. What if you're a really caring and goodly individual, but your stories are usually pretty serious and filled with struggle and not much humor? So your stories are different from the person you are. How do you put that on social media and connect with your audience?
I think you could still do that because you're being genuine. So you could talk about how like it pinged you to put a character through that and you hurt with them, but hey, needed to happen anyway. There's bits of ourselves into every story and every character. Like there's a reason why a certain character trait from a friend was in this sidekick kind of or supporting role character. You care about the people and maybe you can make jokes about it, but that doesn't mean that your story itself has to be humorous in order to work with you. I wrote a short story, a military sci-fi short story for an anthology under my pen name, and I was going to struggle with it a little bit because it was like explosions and all this pew pew and all this stuff in the book, and I ended up just finding something in there that was a part of me, which was hope. In the middle of all of this, my character kind of had to work through their innocence and their perception and the hope of life. And while I'm usually kind of sarcastic, jokester, silly person, my character didn't have that really, the story didn't have that much, but one of the editors had commented like, it was cool. I could still see you in it, but it didn't take away from the story. So I don't know if that helps to answer the question at all.
I think it does. I mean, I think, people forget just how, dynamic they are. Yes, this person's very humorous. They crack a lot of jokes, but, they also have something else going on, and that can definitely come out in the writing that they prefer. And, I have an author friend on my Facebook. He writes like serious horror, but he also has a pen name where he writes romance, sweet kind of romance. So he tries to keep those separate. And even though some people know that he does both, it doesn't dissuade, from who he is, because he's, as you say, authentically him all the time.
Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, there's not too many people who only write one thing, who only watches one kind of show or one kind of movie. You're going to like parts, and there's going to be like those Venn diagram circles where everything kind of overlaps a little bit. And in the middle of all of them, that's you. And you today, or this series, you're going to be this side of you, and we're just multifaceted. And I think that's what makes us love characters in the books that we read and in the shows or the movies that we watch. Like Star-Lord, for example, he could seem rather flat, but he's multidimensional as well, where he's got his past and his aches and his pain points, and where he overcompensated and his brokenness, and where he can rise up to be a hero. And he can have that kind of banter with Rocket Raccoon, but he can also have the sweet spot for Gamora and saving the world. So, I mean, that's all kind of how we all are.
So with that, we are going to take a short pause to usher in our show sponsor tonight, which is the Ember War Saga by Richard Fox, of which all 9 books, that's right, folks, you heard it here, all 9 are on sale for 99 cents right now for the time being. I really don't know how long it's going to be for, but for now.
Wait, and Richard Fox, the one who just got that Nebula Award nomination?
Yes.
Fox? Yes, and congrats.
9 books for under $9. That's amazing, right? No, my math is horrible. Anyway, continue. From book 1, the countdown to the invasion of Earth has begun. A merciless alien race bent on human extermination has pointed its armada towards Earth. The countdown to their arrival begins. A mysterious intelligence warns only a young scientist, Marc Ibarra, of our impending doom. Together, the two create a plan for humanity to survive the invasion. Even with the aid of advanced new technology, Marc is faced with a major problem. The plan, if it works, can only save a fraction of us. Who survives? Who dies? How can humanity win the battle against almost certain annihilation? With what will only be an ember of humanity left, will it be enough to rekindle our chance for survival and strike back at the Xaros? The Ember War is the first novel in an epic military sci-fi series. If you like The Legacy Fleet by Nick Webb or Omega Force by Joshua Dalzell, then you'll love this explosive adventure with nail-biting sci-fi battles across the stars. Read this now. All 9 books, 99 cents each.
Yay. So I guess kind of to wrap up where we left off before this show sponsor is that we need to be authentically ourselves on social media. And as writers, no matter if you're writing across genres or presenting yourself on the different platforms, even if your content can be a little darker or sadder than the person you are in person, just be yourself, be authentic, don't be fake, and people will be drawn to the person that you are. We had a question from Dean Floyd that's sort of on those notes. He asks, as you garner a following and it gets larger, how integral does writing to market matter, if at all? Are you constantly trying to find a new audience, new readers, or are you trying to please your loyal fan base?
It's a deep question.
Yeah, that's
complicated.
um,
Ought we to write to market? That's part of it.
mm-hmm.
As you're building up your fan base, should we be striving to please and find new readers, or just keep our loyal fan base that we already have happy? Or both?
Well, I think you need to write the story as the story should be told, right? You're not going to make major adjustments in your story just to appease the readers. I mean, it's going to happen naturally and organically as you're pantsing or plotting it out. The characters need to go through the arc that they need to do, and you already had in your mind where that's going to go. So unless you make a hard turn left to start appeasing your readers, but what they like about the story is what you've crafted and you've created. So you should probably stay on that path. You want to keep getting readers into the funnel, and I think if you're writing good content and you're marketing it appropriately, that will happen naturally. The whole right to market stuff, there's a lot of value in that. I know Chris speaks to that and how and why, because people like what they like with a little bit of different. And so I think that will stick. That'll stick with them well.
And we have a sneak attack by Josh Hayes.
Hi.
Welcome to the show, Josh.
Hi.
Hello. Sorry I'm late.
That's okay. Sort of the boss,
Yeah. Everybody behave.
That's right. No more shenanigans at all.
So on that note, and I'm also going to add in a bit of what Dean Floyd was asking. A lot of our audience questions are from Dean Floyd, and he's amazing with that, by the way. How does one get a cover that appeals to that audience, as well as what Dean is asking, any tips, tricks, life hacks on getting decent covers without breaking the bank? Requirements. What requirements does a minimally, if I could talk, viable book cover need to meet? Hopefully that wasn't too much.
No, all good. So if it's the mechanics of like, where do I find a cover artist? There's lots of resources. We started, one of the things that we did was started following artist groups on Instagram. And then we see something we like, we reach out to them and say, you're an artist. Can you create something in this size? And they say yes. And we say, great, we want to use it for a book cover. Would you be open to it? They say yes. So for every book cover I launch, I have a cover input. So it's a document that has all of the necessary details for the artist to understand what the ask is and what the end goal is. That way, just the gap between expectations and reality is disappointment. So I want to try to minimize that gap with my input document. And now if it's a matter of how do I find someone good or how do I work through that process, it goes back to exactly that. Like, you want to set the expectations, show samples and references, communicate in meaningful words that they can use to execute. Like, make it pop. Well, make it pop can mean different things. So is that a matter of make this part stand out? There's need more contrast between the foreground and the background, the contrast in the lettering. What type of lettering are you looking for? So the more samples you can give and references, I think they don't have to have a picture in their mind and try to guess what's in your mind. You can, like this, except I don't like the gold, or I like this font, or this character, and to go after an artist who has the skill set to do what's appropriate for your genre. So is that painting? Is it the 3D renderings? Is it the stock photography with photo manipulation and paint over it? And also knowing if you have some crazy poses and composition, as well as you need a dragon or a werewolf or a spaceship in there, you're going to want to find an artist who can do that. And so going back to, if you want the photorealistic Photoshop, but you want a dragon in there, well, there's no real photos of dragon. You got to go find the 3D imaging of those. So And to the question about breaking the bank, well, that means something different to everyone, because what may break the bank for Josh could be different for me, could be different from Nick Cole. So what you want to consider, and here I have another picture to share, another slide graphic here, if I can get that up. Yeah, maybe I can get it up. Okay, hold on. Do you guys want to ask any questions on that while I figure out my life here?
I was just going to say on the cover deal, when you think about looking for a cover designer or thinking about what you want on your cover, go and look at like the top 50 covers that are in that specific genre and see what the most popular ones are doing, and look at it over time. For instance, Richard Fox is now going back and redoing some of his covers, because when you look at what's going on with military science fiction covers right now, all of them are the same. You want to keep within the genre, you want to keep kind of a trend, but if they all look the same, then you need to do something that makes it stand out. And so, like, for instance, in modern day thriller slash like intrigue, like a Brad Thor type book, most of his books are like an American flag and then a symbol, and then his name is big and the title is big. There's not a whole lot on the cover that you're going to get for that type of book. But like for a romance book, you're going to have like either a girl on the cover and like a nice dress, or if it's like an erotica book, you're probably going to have like a hunky dude with an open shirt or whatever.
No shirt.
Yeah, or no shirt, right? I don't know. I'm not all about that life. But you know, you don't want to get a military science fiction cover that has a dude with no shirt on it. You know what I mean? Like so you just want to make sure with what you're doing. And then even in each one of those covers, you're going to have the ability to look and see some of them are more expensive than others. But just because you spend $5,000 on a cover doesn't mean that book's going to sell. So, right. I mean, you can, what's crazy is that a lot of the best covers out there are cheap, because some of the best artists you can find live in places where $300 is like $5,000 to them. So if you can find the right artist, like if you shop cover artists, they're going to know what the going rates are for the covers. But if you can find artists that aren't cover artists, you can get that art for cheap.
Right. That's exactly where we are with the one that we're working on. We found the artist on Instagram, and she's in Italy. And when we asked her about the art, she said $100. And I was like, 100, I need to like translate that over to dollars. So what's your currency? She's like, no, $100. I'm like, I'm not paying you $100.
Right.
Like, what you're going to give me is so much more than that. And I want, when someone asks like, who did this cover, I will let them know, because I want her to get the work that her talent and her abilities, not only her talent, but like her interactive abilities, customer service, deserve, right? But I'm going to give her a little bit extra, because I want her to know I'm not taking advantage of her situation, and I appreciate what she's doing. And a lot of people will go in and be like, oh, I paid for it, I want 15 rounds. It's like, that's a waste of your time. That's a waste of, that's not a good experience for anyone. So to go onto the graphic that I had here, what I'm sharing is some different places that the book cover appears in some advertising. So you'll see on the far side, there's the iPhone, and that's just an iPhone look. And that's an Facebook ad. Your cover shouldn't be on the ad, but to say that the elements of your look.
Sorry.
Okay, of your elements of your cover there in an ad. You can also see that your cover would appear on your Amazon ads, whether that's in the sponsored product or sponsored keyword section, or over in the Kindle that we're seeing here, that is where the lock screen ads appear. And then if you're doing BookBub, you can see that it's either going to be in the email or in the ad. That's what's selling your book. Remember our graphic of the steps of where a reader's encountering your book? That's early on. If they don't buy off on it, then they're not going to get to your blurb. They're not going to get to your author page. They're not going to give 2 cents about you because they didn't like your cover. So when you come to like trying to decide if you're going to skimp on the cover, I would absolutely advise against it, because that's going to be one of your strongest marketing tools and ways to connect with your reader. But to Josh's point, you don't necessarily need to spend $5,000. What you need to have is someone who is talented, and or you need to work with somebody who knows how to communicate with the designer and knows how to interpret what's going to be right for your genre and your brand.
And I was going to touch on, I think Ken just said in the live chat, be careful about the cheap artists because they'll use art that maybe they don't have a license for, and you need to watch out for that. The same thing will happen with artists that you pay really expensive. Like I know specifically of a writer who spent, upwards of $1,500 to $2,000 for his covers, and the guy that put them together put art from like well-known video games in the cover. And when he shared the cover, the fans were like, well, this is from that video game and you probably shouldn't use that. And so he had to go back to the cover artist and make him redo it because, so yeah, you just have to pay attention to what you're getting, I guess. Yeah.
Some of the things that I do, given my background in advertising and working directly with artists for so long, is for one artist who uses stock imagery, I source the stock imagery. So I sign off on it so I know where it's from. For another artist, it's all 3D rendering. So I see the sculpting of the gray matter in his Google ZBrush that he's creating. So I know that it's all original. I'll give him samples of like, hey, I really like Master Chief's helmet, but we need to vary it up in these ways. And then this new artist, it's all hand sketches. So I see the sketch, I see the outline, and then I see as she's coloring it in. And part of why we do these check-ins is so that they're never too far down a path before we need to correct. And I'm very gracious, and we're very humbled and appreciative of the work that they're doing because I really need it. And as much as an editor is giving feedback on your manuscript, like this is their art. It may be your idea, but it's their creation. So I want to honor that as well.
Okay, so we're talking about using our cover to reach our target audience. And if I'm thinking along those lines, I would do what Josh said and go to Amazon, look up the top selling books in my category, look at the covers, and try to figure out how can I find a cover that fits in with these covers, but also stands out. That's great. What if I look at those covers and I'm like, ugh, I don't like any of these. They do all look the same, and I want mine to be different. I don't like the way my genre covers looked. What should I do at that point? Should I put aside my personal preference and fit in with the rest, or should I throw caution to the wind and do something different?
Well, I think people want what's familiar. And if you're a true fan of that genre, you'll understand why it is the way there is. So if you're writing romance, like historical romance, Scottish romance, you're like, I don't like kilts and I don't like bare-chested, Caucasian men on those covers. Like, well, then maybe you don't understand romance in the Highlands, or maybe, there's a disconnect there in being true to what the readers like about that genre. Oh, I'm so tired of ships. Well, it's a space opera. Like this ship is as much a character in the story as the other like humans or aliens or whoever, like intelligent beings. So you need to like kind of check yourself before you wreck yourself.
It's good advice.
So, yeah, you can quote me on that.
Check yourself before you wreck yourself.
So, talking in line with covers, back with your infographic, they want to find something, they're on Amazon, they see your cover, they like it, now they're reading your blurb. So about the blurb, the tagline, Amazon description, what can authors do with their copy? I know we touched on a little bit in the beginning of the show, but how can we use that to really make sure it reaches the right audience? If any other things to add, I guess.
Yeah, I'm going to sorry, I'm going to say one more thing about the covers, and then I keep going backwards. Sorry about that. If you look at if you want to go back and play it later on, if you look at where the covers appear, you'll also notice that they're not much more than a thumbnail. And people come up with these covers and they're worried about like the details, and the cover's goal isn't to get them to buy the book. The cover's goal is to get them to take one step further down that path, but it needs to be able to have the right information standing out at a thumbnail size. So if you've got all kinds of business going on and you don't have the right contrast between know your color palettes and understanding what's right for your market and what stands out and the text being legible, then no one's going to be able to look at or read or know what the heck your book's about at a thumbnail size. So, okay, that's that. So the blurb. Going back to the blurb, I know Brian Meeks did talk about this a lot last week. If you guys haven't listened to that, I definitely recommend it when it comes to copywriting and data. He's pretty dang passionate. It's copywriting, data, and bacon. So Brian Meeks there. So I think he mentioned this. I'm not sure, but something that I also do. We talked about that earlier, Lauren. How the reviews are a gold mine. Mm-hmm. So you got to know certain words, keywords that are important in how they relate to your genre, your category, not even genre, your category. And that's going to come across also in your reviews. People are going to communicate what resonated with them. And 9 out of 10 times, it's not a plot point. It's emotion based. It's how it made them feel. It's the excitement or the passion or any of that came across. And so was it thrilling? Was it engulfing? Was it consuming? Was it love? Was it triangle? Was it sweet? What? Those are the kind of things that will stand out. And what made you want to write that? So what I suggest doing is just keep writing these little 3 to 6 word tags and just keep knocking them out until like you can get really excited and you'll get into your flow state, and then you can go back and pick and manipulate from there which ones really capture the spirit of your story and of your character. So you can use those as taglines or as part of your blurb. And in terms of the sort of formula and length, you don't want it to go on forever. Like me right now, my soliloquy. What you want is to get them down the decision-making path. And the longer they're in the decision-making mode, and the longer, more steps that they're there, the more likely chance they have of dropping off. So you want to give them enough of the key information for them to make a decision. You don't need to sell them completely on the book there, because what you want them to do is read the book and be getting you those page count payouts and not be spending so much time reading the blurbs. So I'd say like 150 words or so. And when you make your taglines and your hooks, if you make them short enough that the eye reads it and process it without having to think about going on to the next word and the next line, it gets them down the path that much further. And I really agree with what Brian said about the spacing apart, so that way they can get to it. But there are some times where it's valuable to have long copy, and that just depends on the genre and your author personality and your author brand. If that's kind of who you are and you're a little wordy, you're just like the opposite side of Hemingway, like that's fine. You do you. If it's selling and if people are buying it and like it, then that should also come across in your blurb.
I agree. I think white space is a real thing when you look at the page on any type of book and it's just filled with words. Like, you ever see a post on Facebook that it's just like a wall of text? You're like, I'm not reading that at all.
Yeah. It's what's appropriate, right? Like,
right.
Is Facebook the appropriate place? Is texting the appropriate place to wax poetic? Or is that like send me an email?
Right, exactly. And so you have that wall of text that you don't want to read. The same thing in your sales copy. The sales/ad copy/blurb is not the 5-page synopsis of your book. It's where you want people to buy the book at. So that white space where you like, it's dialogue where you go through and you're like, blah, 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 like zipping through it, and you're turning the page because you want to get the same thing with the blurb. You want people get through the blurb with as much excitement and motion to get to the, okay, I want to read it. Click.
Yeah. And that you nailed it on the head there, Josh. Emotion. People buy based on emotion. They're not buying on logic because there's not a whole lot logical about some of the fiction that we're writing. A pterodactyl. So yeah, makes sense. Sound logic. I'm in.
So in the author branding scheme, that tagline, the blurb, the copy, all of that really becomes the branding of the story, which is another layer of the author brand.
Yes. Yeah, that's going to even come across in what you're sharing on your Facebook page, what you're sharing in your email, newsletters. You want to be respectful of their time, and it to be of value. And, if your blurb, a synopsis is really just one part of the blurb, and that could be done in 2 to 3 key lines, right? So you have to sell the brand, the tone, the character, the emotional payoff. And at the end of it, you need to have that call to action because I'm so enveloped in like what you're selling me on. I don't know what to do next. And you're like, so buy it. Oh, okay. Now let's go buy it. And so, it goes in your posts and in your emails as well. So if you're telling a story, tell a story, kind of get to the point, the key emotion, and move on. If you're letting them know about a new release coming up or you're sharing an excerpt, whatever it is, just 90-10, 90% of the time you're adding value, 10% of the time you'll make the request to buy.
It's like it's like teaser trailers, right? Like the teaser trailers that come out before the full trailers, and it gets you really excited about the movie or just the trailer in general. But then I know everyone's seen the trailers where the trailer goes on for like 3 minutes and basically tells you the entire movie, and you're like, why do I need to go read the movie and see the movie now?
Movie, I like that art ended well.
Yeah. I hate trailers that give away twists, endings, like all that stuff. Like, just get me excited to go to the movie so I can figure it out.
Yeah, Jonathan doesn't watch trailers anymore, he says, because either they give too much or they have all these Easter egg videos and you need to watch afterwards to understand what may or may not have been said.
Right.
And then they show stuff in trailers that's not even in the final footage, so it could be misleading.
Yep.
Yeah, he's got this love-hate relationship with them. And I'm like, dude, their trailers, like, you're engaged.
Sometimes I like the trailers better than the movies.
Oh, ouch. But nothing beats the popcorn.
That's true.
So you want to show the audience that they're going to love your book. You want to show them instantly, like in as few words as possible, and then have a call to action at the end. We did have another question on blurbs before we leave blurbs. Erica Sheniak asks, how long should a blurb be to not only maintain engagement, but get the person to buy? Well, we kind of already covered that.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say as short as possible, but like as long as necessary. Right? Like, what do they need to know? They don't need to know certain aspects in order to make a decision, right? Because like hopefully the story's got a bunch of characters who are all on a journey, who are all experiencing things, the world, the ship, the land, the clan, the whatever it is, clan with a C for Highlands. And but not every one of those details needs to be in the blurb in order to get them convinced that this is a book that they would be interested in reading.
Which is why it comes back to emotion.
Mm-hmm. Or take them on that emotional roller coaster, like read a couple lines and be like, oh, what are they thinking and feeling right now? Okay, cool. What do I want them to feel next? Like, okay, great. So what do they need they need the high, they need the low, they need to be on the edge of their seat, just enough for you to say, buy now, click buy. Download, get it on Kindle Unlimited, whatever it is. And even the words used for that section could be genre specific. When we get out of control and crazy, but like I think Shane Silvers has a line, join the hellish racket today. Like how perfect is that for the demons and magic and sorcery and werewolves and all of that for his series. Join the hellish racket when you click or buy now. Okay.
Which is a small detail of branding that not everybody might think about, but readers are just like, ooh, I want to be a part of that.
Right? You've brought them into the world that you've created. And that's what something J.K. Rowling does. We can all say has done that really well when you're reading the Harry Potter books, and you're immersed. And once they're immersed, they want more, because we're all filling our emotional buckets. And so we're not just crafters of stories, we're creating emotion, we're creating escape. I once did a search for why do people read, just to understand where they are and what they're doing. And it was because it's cheaper than therapy, to escape. I want to get away, to experience something, to help me cope. Because it pairs well with wine, because I can do that while my kids are around, or it sounds like a lot of women things, but like to reminisce or relive coming of age again, whatever it is, right? Like none of that is logical. All of that is emotional based, and we're able to provide that for readers one way or another. To go off on a side tangent here on all of that is reading these studies, and it's talking about, or actually listening to podcasts, and they're talking about how depression and loneliness are top killers and illnesses these days. So more people die from suicide than they do from car accidents each year. People are lonely. It was something like 1 in 3 people like don't have anyone to talk to. And as authors, we can create these places for them to go and feel safe. Like we can bring them back to a moment when they were in the battlefield with their fellow soldiers or Marines, airmen, that we can take them off to a love escapade if they've lost a loved one, or maybe they're just not in a space in their life where they're feeling the love and the romance. Just something fanciful and fun, because life can get heavy. And how awesome that we get to do that, but it doesn't start and end on the pages of the book, right? It's the whole brand, and we need to just really own it and not think of it as painful, but as a gift and something that we're honored to do.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better.
You create magic and we're all misty-eyed. And
sorry. This is one of the reasons I left I was okay with leaving my job, where I was potentially going to be an owner of an agency in Newport Beach, California, because authors are awesome. So, yeah.
Okay.
Any more questions?
We've got loads of questions.
Yeah, there's a still scrolling.
Okay.
Well, I know you talked about it earlier, and it was before I came on. So while you're looking for maybe another question, I'll just touch on. You guys were talking about different social media pages for like professional and personal life, or splitting them up or whatever, or figuring out what you're going to use as a part of your brand for social media. And one of the things that I've found and what I like doing is just showing process. Like just sharing about like what you're doing, and writing. A lot of people say, well, I don't have anything to market or brand because I don't have a book that's done. But the process is what is intriguing to a lot of people. And so if you can document that process, whether it's coming up with your ideas for the book or talking about where your characters took you this week or whatever, like talking about that is actually building your brand, and it's pulling people interested people into that area of your life. And that's very easy to do. It doesn't take any effort, because you sit down and you live with these characters for 2 or 3 or 4 hours a day. You know them, you can talk about them and share them, and that's some things that you can share that are easy to talk about. And as writers and readers, we're interested in that. I mean, I love when I can watch brand new Brandon Sanderson interviews, because I'm like, yes, I can listen to what he's talking about, and so people will be interested in what you have to say. Like, you just have to put it out there and allow people to listen to it.
Yeah, and you have to decide kind of what's your shtick, right? So Nick Cole, for example, we know if you've read any of his books or follow him on Facebook, donuts. I want to eat like Nick Cole. Yep. I would, but if I did that, Jonathan would kill me at the gym to balance it out. I don't think I could do both.
Apparently he broke Richard today.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I tell him, stop breaking your friends. We all worked out, a group of us in Vegas, and like half the guys were like, I'm done. And John's like, you want to work out with me? I'm like, no, bro. I know how this ends. I know how this ends. We still have 2 days of conference left. But anyway, so, you know, and Nick has his political opinions, and that's his thing, right? That's Nick Cole. I'm just going to use these names because I'm familiar closely with them. So Jonathan, you're not going to see the political stuff on his pages, on whether it's his readers group, his private group, his author page, or his personal profile, because there's 3 different places. So you have a you have a profile, a page, and then a group. You can only do ads from pages. So if you're thinking of doing a page, it doesn't have to be your author page. You can have a separate genre page. I run all of my sci-fi and fantasy clients, or just about all of their ads from my my genre page, because then it's less like the author is selling, and feels a little more anonymous. Plus, I'm doing so many, then it's easier to do it from one page. But I digress. So it's, you know, fitness, motivation, and family stuff is going to be his shtick. You're going to see something different on Richard Fox's page, right? Because he's got a different personality. And some may talk about process, and some may just give an update on their lives, because you've got to remember, as inglamorous as it feels sometimes, everybody still thinks being a writer is just this super glamorous life.
Right.
Yeah. Joke's on us. It is not. So, you know, caffeine. Yeah. Caffeine. How do you stay upbeat? What is your latest research? Some cat memes never hurt. Dog stuff. Is it about ships? Is it about research that you're doing? Kind of pick like your top 3 or 4 things and sprinkle them in there, and kind of keep those on rotation. And you may, if you know, some people are still working full time or balancing the author life from, you know, their Bruce Wayne life, and maybe you start at the beginning of the month and you set up some pre-scheduled posts on something more generic, and then you can do the more organic stuff as your days go on.
Yep.
I hope that's helpful.
Very cool. So, yeah, I don't know how to wrap that up. I mean, you did a great job.
Oh, thanks, guys. And if anyone has any questions, you could always reach out to me, and we'll answer as soon as I have a hand or wrist free.
Where can we find you?
Yes.
Oh, well, for quick instant messages, Jynafer Rose Yanez. That's Jynafer. Rose Yanez, Yanez on Facebook. And then if you want to reach out via email, archimedesbooksinfo@gmail.com. So, and it's just like there, it's posted in the group. So that's how you spell Archimedes Books.
Nice.
There we go.
Yeah.
Well, we are a little over the end of the hour. I know we had a couple more questions on taglines, but I kind of think like we sort of answered those a bit with conversation, because that's
you could reach out to me if you want to ask more.
always. And there it is. There's my little outro. Thank you for coming on the show, Jynafer. You already told us where our viewers and listeners can find you. So thank you everyone else for coming and hanging out with us, and Josh dive bombing the show, because that's what Josh does. And as always, let us know what you thought about the show in the comments below, and be sure to give us a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. We'd love to hear from you. For Lauren Moore and now Josh Hayes, I am Kayleen Williams. Thank you for joining us on your writer's journey. We shall be back next week, talk about some reading, talk about some writing, and everything in between, right here on Keystroke Medium.
Good night.
Good night.